So welcome, welcome. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Ahom Prema Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So we're going to be doing a live. Andromeda is going to join me, and we're going to be talking about this weird idea of that everyone's so hell-bent on how Yeshua died. Why are we going into Yeshua and Mary Magdalena? Why is there such a need to look at that energy? Why is this important? Well, because the lies told to us by the Catholic Church using the death of Yeshua, not how he lived, but how he died, has been used to subjugate the masses with fear, with lies of the Old Testament, using an Anunnaki God and calling it God, like the one who created us all would be that jealous, that spiteful and thirsty for blood. That's all lies. So how Yeshua lived is really more important than how he died. And it's funny because that's exactly what has not been taught. Not how he lived so much, but how he died. That seems to be the whole entire story. He died for our sins. 2,000 years have shown us that. We're still fucking up. We're still harming people. We're still harming the planet. So was it really what it was all about? How he died? Or was it more likely how he lived? An example of what is possible for all of us to rise to a certain level. I know Buddha, you would think you would all look at Buddha, who was a huge, a massive, powerful lord, prince of royal blood. And he could have, in fact, a sage, when he went to the king, Siddhartha's father, and the sage said, your son can be a great king, a great warrior, or he will be on a spiritual path. And this is why Siddhartha's father did everything he could to keep Siddhartha, who later became the Buddha, behind the royal gates, the golden gates of the palace, and making sure that he was plied with the finest foods, the most beautiful women, the most luxurious accoutrements. And yet, the fate of Siddhartha was to leave the palace walls and to explore the outer world and his inner world to become the Buddha. It's interesting. So was it really how he died or how he lived? What he walked away from to become the Buddha? And that's why it's important for us to look at these avatars who walked this planet, who gave us the lessons, and yet still we allow ourselves to be distracted and destroyed by this insane devotion to money, to people who have more money than us, and how we shame ourselves for not being quote unquote successful in money. And yet, Yeshua was not a rich man. Neither was Buddha. In fact, Buddha walked away from billions in today's terminology of wealth, right? And these are just two men, just two. And so Andromeda Flame is going to join us in a minute. And she is, she was raised a Catholic. And let me invite her on. And hopefully she can give us some insight into the Catholic Church. And I mean, if anyone knows anything about this, it would be Andromeda Flame, right? Being Irish, being raised as a Catholic. If you could go ahead. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I was very much raised as a Catholic. I went to convent school, Catholic primary school, the kind of convent school where the bell rang for the rosary at midday every day, and we had to go to confession and mass every morning and all of this stuff. And the whole focus of the mass, the whole point of the mass was the Last Supper. Mm-hmm. And the night before Yeshua was arrested, and what he said as he broke bread with his disciples And another culture within Catholicism is on Good Friday. Every year you do the Stations of the Cross. And the Stations of the Cross takes you through Yeshua's final journey up to the resurrection. And the whole message is he died for our sins. He died because we are unclean, because we are riddled with sin. So much so that there's a race to get Catholic babies baptized in case they don't survive and they end up in limbo. Because even babies are born with what's called original sin. And of course, original sin is from the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, again, demonizing the feminine, right? It was the original sin of Eve as opposed to Adam and Eve. So this, it's almost like a DEATH cult.
Yeah.
And it instills massive fear. Now, when you combine that with the clipping and the doctoring of the original Bible in the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century, to promote this idea that you had to pay the church, and you would have people who would actually give vast amounts of money to the church so that their soul could ascend to heaven. You have to ask what all of this is about: keeping people in fear, keeping people in this illusion, right? That it's all material, and focusing on the death of Yeshua as opposed to how he lived, because a lot of how he lived we are not supposed to know. We are not supposed to see Yeshua as a rebel. We are not supposed to see Yeshua as a husband and father, right? And yet he was all of these things. He was in this body on this earth. He embodied unconditional love. He knew what was going to happen to him. He absolutely knew what was going to happen to him. But what's really refreshing about this time is that people are actually starting to talk about the energy of Yeshua, the example of Yeshua, as a man who walked on this planet and served humanity and still serves humanity through an example of unconditional love. And that is how he lived, through generosity. Now, there are snippets of it, right? Everybody will know the stories of how he healed lepers, for example, how he made the blind see, how he turned water into wine, the story of the loaves and fishes. Everybody will know the quote about it is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. We know that he was a man of truth, a man of unconditional love, a man of true generosity of spirit through his teachings and through his actions. And this is lost when all people focus on is the cross. That awful, gruesome death. And that death was very deliberate.
Yes.
Because that was a punishment that was reserved for traitors, for people who unalived other people, for recurrent criminals, thieves, etc. It really was something that was reserved for people who were deemed worthy of the harshest possible punishment. It was gruesome, it was degrading, and it was very, very deliberate. And even Pilate did not want to see Yeshua have that end. It's very clear in the letter, if you can get hold of it, Acta Pilate, which was a letter from Pilate to then Emperor Tiberius.
And there's one to Seneca as well.
Yeah. There
And
is,
that's
yeah.
the one with Seneca is much more revealing.
The one Seneca is where he talks about, yeah, exactly, where he talks about the experience of those who witnessed it.
Yeah.
The one Tiberius is very much about Pilate's attitude to Yeshua, and the manipulation which occurred in order to turn the crowd against Yeshua. And there's a quote in there where Pilate says that the crowd was absolutely rabid, right, calling for his crucifixion. And the only person who was calm was Yeshua in all of that. But we must not focus on his end. And in fact, it wasn't his end, as we know that he is an energy which guides us all, which guides humanity in unconditional love, unity consciousness. But we must focus on the example that he left us through the way he lived.
As a rebel.
As a rebel, a beautiful, righteous, loving rebel who displayed rage on occasion. And that's okay. We're all allowed to express rage when it's about injustice.
Exactly.
You know, we should, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and rage has been attempted to be lobotomized. That's why people blow their fucking gasket. And specifically the rage of men. The masculine rage is way different than feminine rage. And because we're not allowed to express our anger, our despair, our inability to express our incredible, huge emotions. Like, for example, the word unalivened instead of the word killed. Just pasteurized words, even the pasteurization of words, it's one thing to pasteurize your milk, but to pasteurize words is to lobotomize passions and understanding. Make no mistake, if you hear people publicly saying the word unalivened, we're only using this here for the purpose of not being the rug pulled out of us. Every once in a while, you can actually use the right words for the right emotions, but don't do it too much, or else the algorithm or AI will pull your shit. So with that said, these supposedly subtle things to lobotomize us has been done successfully by orthodox teachings. And now social media has stepped in to further muzzle us. And this is very dangerous. So when you're in public and someone uses the word unalivened, correct them and go, you mean Killed, meaning you pronounce the words, right? Because call them out on it, not in a violent way, but in a gentle way of saying, redirect them to use the right words. This is not social media. You don't have to fucking pasteurize your words. What did you mean? Did you mean that? For example, okay, that's really, really important for all of us in society to do what we have to do to survive on these platforms until platforms like Neptune. I highly recommend you check out Neptune. Their logo is an octopus, just on the side note, because these platforms are being birthed because all of us want to have real platforms where we can speak our truth, like Rumble. For example, Rumble's another platform. And so I want you to go back to that, but we have to remember that he saw, and I want you to go into this, his rebelliousness went so far as to refute at the time Abrahamic teachings that women, because they were stoning women, the fact that, how do I put this without being called out on my end? The fact that the Semitic people are Arabic and Jewish, and the fact that they're cousins, and the fact that they still clash is shocking to me. Shocking, because they have so many similarities in the way they saw women and the way they see women today. Don't forget Barbara Streisand when she did Yentl. Women, it's a story about a woman who poses as a boy to become a rabbi. Just don't forget, because women were not allowed to read these books. On the side note, so when Yeshua took Mary Magdalene as a high priestess as his equal, that was revolutionary. Can you take it from there, if you don't mind, and expound on that?
At the time, I mean, the Bible, which many people are taught, and this is why when somebody says they're a Bible scholar, right? I do kind of, it does raise an eyebrow, because I'm thinking, well, what Bible are you talking about? Are you going back to the ancient texts? Are you looking at the Gnostic Gospels? which were suppressed, hidden, and then discovered in the mid 20th century. The merging of the Marys is one of the most deceitful aspects of what has happened to the texts.
Yeah.
The very, very clear agenda of undermining the divine couple by painting Mary of Magdalena as a WHORE, as a wanton woman, right? A woman of the night, a woman of no value. Is simply a lie. If you haven't read the Gnostic Gospels, please do, because you will see that there is a Gospel of Mary. You will also see that there is an encounter between Yeshua and one of his followers, where they complain about Mary being given so much power, so much say, that she had so much of a voice, because women were seen as spiritually, intellectually, and in all other ways inferior. But Yeshua admonishes his follower, saying that she is their equal. She is his equal.
Yeah, not their equal, no. His equal.
Not their equal. Yeah, exactly.
No. I know what you said, but that's a massive, massive slap in their face of his disciples, apostles, whatever you want to call them. And I think that right there. Now, I'm going to bring up Wesley Huff, since he's made a name for himself as a biblical scholar. He's saying that the Council of Nicaea is not what we think. Now, there are some people claiming that Constantine was baptized, that believes, and why is this all important? Well, because we're coming on Christmas Day. And Christmas Day is supposedly the day Yeshua was born, in a stable with a donkey and blah, blah, blah. And they were, basically rejected from every household until a farmer gave them a barn or whatever. But what's most important, and this is something we need to go back to, is the 3 wise men that came from the east bearing gifts. This is important because these were to be his teachers. There was an introduction. It was, we know that you were coming. We were told you were coming, Isa. And we are letting you know where we are located. So when he comes of age, bring him to us so we can teach him, hence the lost years. The lost year. Can you jump on that as well, or finish the whole Mary thing? Because I think Mary was part of that journey.
Mary was part of that journey. Herod was king at the time of Yeshua's birth, and he became aware that there was a large influx of people to Bethlehem, because they realized that, or they had heard that the Messiah was to be born, and part of that was that these wise men traveled a long, long way. Astrologers, right? Essentially, they traveled a long, long way to witness the birth of this baby and to pay homage to this baby and bring gifts. When Herod became aware of this, he ordered that all baby boys under the age of 2 be unalived. Called the Massacre of the Innocents. And it's believed that there were 144,000 innocents who were massacred.
Wow.
At that time.
144,000.
Yeah. And as a result, Mother Mary and Joseph fled with the infant to Egypt. Now, what we do know is that Yeshua traveled to India. We know that Yeshua traveled to other parts of Asia. We know that Yeshua understood Eastern religious philosophies and other Eastern philosophies. He understood meditation and healing.
And can I jump in? We can't discount the fact that Buddha had been born about 600 years before him. So Yeshua would have learned about Buddhist teachings. I want
Yes.
to make sure people understand that.
Yeah. So Yeshua understood all of this. It's also believed that Yeshua was trained in the healing arts of those philosophies, of those traditions. He certainly understood the benefit of fasting, certainly understood the benefit of meditation. So not just praying. So these lost years are something that we're not taught about in Christianity. We're not taught about in our society.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know through through accounts and that he did travel to these places to learn about these things,
Yeah.
and then he reappears, and he reappears as this righteous rebel, a learned man,
Yeah.
a wonderful orator, and somebody who wanted to spread these teachings, a man who was fully in his divine power
Mm-hmm.
and mission.
Yeah.
And
And
this, yeah.
no, I wanted to also, because I'm trying to weave the threads. So he goes to Egypt. And what does Athaf say in the Emerald Tablet? Which would have been, which they say the Emerald Tablet is actually there for those who can see, which means you have to be in higher frequency dimensions, not 3 density, but 5, 6, 7 density. So he would have been able to enter the halls of Amenti in a meditation. Now, Freddie Silva talks about this particular tomb that he's made it possible for his certain group of his people to come into this particular tomb. And when they go in for meditation, they're each giving a turn. I think he only invites 15 or 20 people to be on his tours. And you're allowed to sit there for like 15, 20-minute meditation. Everyone takes a turn. And the energy, like they come out like deer in the headlights, like shook in a good way, not in a good way. And so if Yeshua, and it's not if, when he went to Egypt, then he would have been allowed to enter the halls of Amenti because he would have been on the frequency match. What are your thoughts on that? We're connecting the dots, folks. We're putting it together because they won't. And part of the reasons why many of us are awakened or awakening more and more, but because there's no I'm awakened. It's I'm awakening. It's an ever flowing, evolving. It's like a million petal lotus that keeps opening up with more and more information. And many of the things that I'm saying, I'm not inventing that. Those are downloads. Those are people coming in with meditation saying, this is what I saw. And you're like, yes, this feels true in my heart chakra. This feels real. Whereas some shit, and this is why many of us can't stomach the Bible anymore, because trust me, I've had a past life as a nun before, and trying to find God through these the mosh pit of shit of lies, and finally coming to this particular timeline. And when I thought, I'm sorry, but when I saw that this book by Margaret Starbird was written in 1942, and I'm in shock that we've had the information for almost 80 years. I mean, she wrote that book before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1947. That's what blows my mind, based on understandings and scriptures and scholarly work, theologians and all kinds of, and how could she write that book not knowing about the Dead Sea Scrolls? It still blows my mind. But anyway, going back to you, if you could tell us why why was this kind of eradication of truth done? What was the purpose for that? We taught there's 60 different ways to express it, but how can you express it?
I think the most important word is separation, right? Because it separates us from the truth about ourselves. It separates us from each other. It separates us from God's source. It separates us from the true Yeshua. It's all about separation. They cannot keep us in fear and in self-loathing And in the veils of illusion,
Mm-hmm.
if we are no longer in separation consciousness, and separation creates so many things. It creates a sense of a lack of safety, which attacks our root chakra. It tells us that we can only believe what we see with our physical eyes. So it attacks our divine connection to our soul and to source. It's one of the most effective and dangerous weapons they have at their disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Is separation, because then they can make us afraid of each other.
Mm-hmm.
They can make us afraid of ourselves. They can even make us afraid of God, which they've done very effectively. And when I say they, I mean the Anunnaki primarily, right?
Yes. Yes.
Through the Old Testament, fire and brimstone, the punitive, vindictive God that we're told about in the Old Testament. That is not source. That is not God. Source and God are a source of infinite love and wisdom.
Yeah.
Not brutality, not separation, not making us do sacrifice.
Yeah.
That is not God. But when the Anunnaki installed themselves as the deities of men, they did so through fear. Do what I tell you, or you will be punished. You will be cast into eternal damnation. Many times have you heard Christian preachers talking about eternal damnation, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the other thing that was taken out was reincarnation, and we can talk about the reasons for that as well. But I wanted to touch on your point about language, Tony,
Yeah.
because I just hear Orwell.
Yeah.
If any of you haven't read 1984, I would urge you to read 1984. Because one of the methods of control, as well as having the cameras in the room and, controlling what people ate and controlling everything they did, they controlled language. One of the great boasts of the regime in 1984 was that they had cut down the English dictionary to just a few pages. So you didn't say that something was amazing or fantastic or tremendous. It was double plus good, right?
Yeah.
And so they were able to lie to people. They were able to limit their thoughts because they limited their language. And this is really, really important. Yes, we're using certain words so that we don't get this life pulled. Okay, because we have to comply to a certain extent. But it sticks in my throat when I have to use their words, and it should stick in your throat too. And every time you use it, you should use it in the consciousness of, this is not the correct word.
Thank you.
And say in your mind what the real word is, so that you don't lose your connection with language and the meaning of words. It's really, really important.
It's crucial. It's crucial to humanity. And one of the things that in linguistic studies is how when you remove language from a person's beginnings, right? Now let's go back. Whenever we incarnate into a certain society, a certain culture, a certain country, and its language. And its language determines the foundation of the particular incarnation you've chosen to experience, okay? And so when you've had this language for the first, say, 5 years of your life or 10 years of your life, and it's removed, stripped from you, as they did with the Native American children, and you're shamed over your language and your culture, it actually destroys the avatar. It won't destroy the soul because the soul is witnessing it, but the avatar that relies on certain things to stay grounded on this particular incarnation is destroyed, right? And you can't overlook like underestimate the importance of language. And Andromeda and I were talking this morning about why, right? About why in Europe and the UK and Ireland they teach poetry to children, and I'm not talking about baby poetry, Mary Mary had a lamb. I'm talking about real fucking poetry that adults read. And that at the age of 5, when you go into class, you're supposed to memorize a piece of poetry. And these, I'm sorry, the phone, I mean, bloody hell, I forgot to put it on you do not disturb. But anyway, and so to teach poetry to preschoolers, to 5-year-olds, to 6-year-olds, to 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and so on, it's interesting how it's been stripped out of the American consciousness, and how it actually teaches you, one, how to think, how to compare, like comparative literature, compare philosophies, intertwine this with that, things of that nature. And that's why people have a hard time, like, understanding the importance of these words that are being pasteurized to control the way you feel, how words evoke. That's why neurolinguistic programming is so powerful. It's not just a somatic control of a human being, NLP, but it's also how, what you say. It's also reflecting someone's way of talking, their tone of voice. So if somebody's going slow in their tone, you match their step in, and you match the words they use, right? And then eventually, when you know you control them, you actually shift it a little bit. And when they mimic you, you know you got them. That's the whole point of neurolinguistic programming. And so clearly, it's a science. And so when they tell you not to use X, Y, and Z, they are definitely programming us, and we need to not consent. We do not consent. The full moon woke me up at 4 o'clock in this morning, and it's the last full moon of this year, which you can still work with today, tonight, whatever. And I want you to really put some attention, not just on your own desires. I'm going off topic, but in topic. But please co-create with us how 2025 is going to look, with the philosophy of working it all into the new earth and 5D consciousness for the entire planet. Can you, and go back onto whatever, I'm sorry, I wanted to add all of that before I forgot. You know how I get. Go ahead, my love.
So where were we?
No, go for whatever, like language, energy,
Yeah,
language being
yeah.
stripped, poetry, and why that's so important. If you're not being taught poetry, if your kid's not being taught poetry, having your kid memorize poetry.
I
And
mean,
why?
poetry is kind of dangerous, isn't it? To the establishment, to the 1%, because poetry makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
A good poem should make you feel.
Yeah.
And the way of you reciting poetry is a really important thing to do, because as you say the words, your intonation, your rhythm, it will invoke certain feelings, certain reactions, even downloads, even visions.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry, good poetry, should speak directly to your soul
Mm-hmm.
through the rhythm, through the use of words, through the the pen of that poet, directly to your soul, through how you intone those words yourself and what they mean to you. And it
Exactly.
creates a love of language,
Yeah.
a real love, a real appreciation of the importance of language and how that connects us to each other, even if we don't speak the same language. Looking at Yeshua's journey, right? He would have had to journey through many, many countries, right? Persia, as it was then,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through into Asia. How many languages did he hear? And how did he communicate with those people? Well, as a great empath, of course, he could communicate
Mm-hmm.
with those people, but understanding the power of words, the power of language, the power of even the construction of the language, of different languages, allows you to communicate with people in non-verbal ways too.
Yeah.
Because it opens up your throat chakra. When you speak, and when you speak with truth, with authenticity, when you feel the words that you're saying, it really, really opens up your throat chakra.
It does. I agree with that. Yeah, there's something about that power. And it's interesting because her and I were talking about, Andromeda and I were talking about, for example, Arthur Rimbaud. And Arthur Rimbaud was a poet. He was a symbolist poet. He was a rebel poet. He was a teenager. He started writing when he was around 15, 16 years old. And he stopped writing all poetry at 19. His family was devout. I think they were Protestants. It could have been Catholic. I could be wrong, but whatever. They were devout religious Christians. And much of his poetry was burned. And the only reason why much of it survived was because Verlaine, his lover, he was married to a woman. Verlaine was much older than him. You could say it was a twin flame journey on the side note, but they were lovers, and it was extraordinary for that period of time. I think Verlaine spent some time in jail for being checked. Again, some of the shit we did in the Victorian era was just unfucking unbelievable. But I think he did some time in jail for being what they call a sodomite, whatever. And they would have checked you. It's a clinical thing. Anyway, whatever. But what's interesting about Arthur Rimbaud, which many Americans don't know, which is, and I think a lot of Europeans don't know that either, to be honest, to be fair, was that every beatnik American poet was influenced by his work, by Arthur Rimbaud's work. Every beatnik poet had read Arthur Rimbaud. And Jim Morrison, the founder of the Doors, right, the singer for the Doors, he adored Arthur Rimbaud. In fact, when you listen to the song "The End," you can see a lot of things that are very evocative to Arthur Rimbaud. I think that the song goes on for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on when he performed it. And why is this important? Well, because it shows how one teenage boy was able to not only revolutionize poetry in France. It went from the romantic to the what do they call surrealist concept, where he was using symbolistic language and metaphoric language, and he was not so much into rhyming the words as bringing evocative emotions. And so when you listen to, say, Yeshua speaking in parables, which is really prose, which is actually the spoken word in action, that's how I see it. He was able to emote a lot of emotions from people listening to him. That's why Yeshua was such a incredible storyteller. He used parables to make probably complex, esoteric ideas, and he brought it down to earth to the people. And that's a gift, right? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a huge gift to be able to use language to communicate in that way. And it is something that is common amongst all the great poets, that they were able to use language to really not just spout words at people, right? But really get them to feel something, to know something. And when you listen to or you read the words of Yeshua, you get that same emotional reaction, or at least you should. Yeah. And if you haven't had that training as a child to feel words,
yeah,
not just hear them, but feel words, then how are you really going to know what you're feeling when you hear the beautiful words of Yeshua?
yeah, yeah.
You know, understanding, making those links is like a muscle. It has to be practiced. It has to be trained.
Yes.
And a training in literature, and I'm not talking about, we a lot of us come from bloodlines where there would have been literacy, particularly amongst the women, but there was oral history There was storytelling, there were songs, there was poetry, there was music.
Yeah.
Each of them a language of their own. And of course, where I'm from, our language was suppressed. You know, children were beaten at school for speaking Irish in the 20th century.
Yeah.
So making that connection early on, training the mind, training the mind so that it can open, right? You don't expect a flower to grow and to bloom without watering and nurturing.
Yes.
It's the same with the mind.
Exactly. And it's funny how everyone runs around calling spelling and so spell and spelling. It's spell. What I find funny about this, I'm just going to say, is they're only talking about English language. Because it's not spelling in France or Italian or Portuguese. So rather than saying all this, spell means spelling and it's casting a spell. No, okay, fine. That's great for the English language, but now what? So what I would invite you to understand is that every language has a frequency that you chose to experience. Like, for example, Japanese has, and if you notice the Japanese feminine vocal cord, the frequency is way different than the masculine. If you listen to, different voices and different sounds of the human voice, and when it speaks, and what happens when it speaks a particular language, with its particular frequency, comment on dit, message. And so I find it that, so then when we look at metaphoric language and when we actually embrace poetry, and again, one of the things I noticed, and I'm going to be, again, very blunt, is what I really loved the most were American poets, because they didn't fuck around. They did not embroider their words. It was right in your face. What was interesting about Rambo is that he didn't either. He used evocative words that he strung together to bring tears to your eyes. That was his magic. Whereas the romantic poets were flexing their muscles of who could do a poem that was rhythmic, right? That had come on, geez, my mind just went blank. In terms of making words rhyme, but without a lot of substance. More of an exercise about, say, the morning dew. 2 pages of that. And when Rambo wrote the poem Dawn, by the end of the piece, you've got tears in your eyes. And that's the power of creating and linking words that bring massive emotions to the human heart and also to the soul that has seen multiple dimensional realities and experiences. It's evocative. This is why most of us who are starseeds are homesick about homes. Many homes we'll never return to because they're gone forevermore. And many homes we will return to, and it'll be like, wow, I'm finally home. So it's interesting how it's very important for us, as we're being muzzled in social media platforms with words like grape and unaliven and shit like that pasteurize the language, the emotions out of you, that you pay attention and you rebel by saying, I don't consent. And also preface, I'm about to say the word unaliven. I fucking hate that word, and it's not okay for me to have to say it, but moving on. So I do that a lot in my lives. I'll go, I fucking hate that word grape. That is such bullshit. What, fruits for something that fucking traumatic? And people are using literally grapes. Like the emoji grapes. Swear to God, a bunch of grapes. That's massive bullshit, and it should piss you off. What are your thoughts on that? Because we are being pasteurized as a people across the world. Not okay. Because, right? What do you
It's not okay because it takes an emotional reaction out of the word. And that's the whole point of it. Right? Because if you're not feeling the horrors of, and oh fuck, I hate using this word, right? Grape, right?
Yeah.
If you're not feeling the horrors of what that word means, then it allows you to speak about it in a glib, almost dismissive fashion. And I've seen that. I've seen people talking about it in a glib and dismissive fashion.
Yeah.
Which is not okay.
Yeah.
right? Because no human being should should underestimate what that word means, the vibration, the tone, the whole horror of the word, because embedded in that word is experience,
Yeah.
is human experience, is human feeling, is trauma. And trauma that many of us will have experienced in this lifetime or previous lifetimes, as masculines or feminines or both.
And Jennifer says it changes the vibration of the meaning. It does. And ultimately, when we go back to Yeshua and we look at, and why are we talking about Yeshua? Why do you, let me ask you this, Andromeda Flame. Why? Because you're a Reformed Catholic, right? You're like, Catholic. And I've never been a religious follower. Thank God I had parents who didn't even, they believed in God, but they didn't believe in the bullshit. So that was good. But why do you think it's important for us to keep talking about Mary Magdalena and Yeshua? What is so important about that? And why are people like Wesley Huff, who's crowing like a little crow, like a little rooster, that he destroyed everything Billy Carson has ever said, because Billy Carson's even didn't know how to recover from it. So that's a lot for you to handle, but just go for it. We're going over, but whatever. I'll just upload it on YouTube.
So why is it important? This is a really important reminder, and we need to be constantly reminded of this, that what we are being fed is illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we're being fed is illusion, is designed to numb us and is designed to separate us. As soon as we start accepting the truth of the Mary Magdalena and Yeshua relationship, as soon as we start accepting the truth about ourselves, and as soon as we start accepting the truth of the world around us, then we're able to cut through the illusion. It is more than just saying this guy's a complete, like this smug little man, right?
Yeah.
This smug little white privileged man, okay?
Who has the voice of an insipid man. I'm sorry, his voice vibration, his voice box is
Oh
like,
no,
it's like it's infused with helium. I'm not kidding.
it's infused with helium and probably a bit of racism. Let's face it. But
Yeah, I agree.
how dare this black man be more intelligent than me, right? It's a threat to people like him. But people like him, they thrive on peddling their lies.
Yep.
He probably doesn't even know that what he's peddling is lies. He's just satisfied that he's got one up on somebody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the point is that understanding the truth of
Mm-hmm.
all of this, and really developing a true relationship with Yeshua as a being of light is the way we're going to be able to cut through the illusion. And cutting through the illusion is absolutely essential for your ascension. And that's the point.
That is the point. And when you look at how they've been so hell bent on giving us, now one of the things I listen with Wesley Huff, and I'm bringing him up because he's decided to go out there on a tour of rhetoric. So with that said, he's talked about the Council of Nicaea, and I watched the whole interview he had with some other guy, and never once did he explain why he doesn't believe the Council of Nicaea happened as it did. Anyways, so and what's funny is that now he's saying the Vatican is wrong. The Vatican is wrong with the most comprehensive library of ancient scrolls pillaged from the last raid of the Alexandrian library around 400 AD or CE, whatever, however you want to take it, and it's fucking crazy. So now you've got true Catholic. Let's remember, the entire religion based on Yeshua it's through the annals of Catholicism. Let's never forget that. Then it sprang off into different versions, right? Protestant, Lutheran, and so on, and it went from there, right? And so when we understand, and for him to say the Vatican is wrong, when they have books that you and I will never read, scrolls we'll never see, that they have hermetically sealed. This is known. Okay, no one's fucking. They have all the information. In fact, they have information that are very important to how we were made. They must have laughed when Darwinism came out with his little theories, and they must have laughed their asses off back in that period because they have the stories, and they probably have scrolls that date back to when the Atlanteans were able to carry information and scribes recopied it when many of them fled to Egypt and fled to other places like in the South Americas and most likely the Himalayas, right, and other places all over the world with knowledge that spoke about how we were made, how this whole system was created, and why what was the purpose of that. I wouldn't be surprised because when you look at the movie Agora, which is a very entertaining movie, you'll enjoy it. Agora, Agora. Good luck in finding it, but if you do, I suggest you watch it. I suggest you screen record it because these movies are becoming more and more dangerous because it talks about the last sacking of the Library of Alexandria, right? It wasn't during the time of Cleopatra when it's reported that it was burned by Octavian, right? Right when he took over.
Yeah.
That's one of the burnings. But a lot of the high monks and priestesses would have removed many of the scrolls. There's a great scene where you see Carl Sagan walking through the Alexandria Library. Remember that show Cosmos? And there's almost a melancholy in what he any of us with a half a brain know there's massive rich information here. And the Vatican has it. So
Yeah.
when you have a little twerp like Wesley Huff saying that the Vatican that it's wrong, with no data to prove it, and no library, he has a little books on his back shelf. These people have vaults. What do you think of that kind of arrogance? And everyone's celebrating him. All the Christians are running around going, "Oh my God, yes, finally you buried Billy Carson like he's the only one." Like Billy Carson is the end all be all of fucking ancient wisdom being uncovered. You've got Freddie Silver. You've got Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock would eat him like a burger, like a little, it'd be like over in 10 minutes with Graham Hancock. It'd be over with him and Freddie Silver would have him on the floor. So it's interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, massive, massive arrogance, and you just wonder who's feeding him this. I like that you called him a twerp because that's a really accurate description of him. But these same people who are well, I don't know if it's the same people, but while you've got people, celebrating this Wesley Huff guy and his indoctrination, they're also threatening Billy Carson's child. I mean, it's obscene.
But but it's business as usual. It's what Christians. I'm sorry. There's Christian and there's Christ light bringers.
Yeah.
Those are two different types of consciousness. Christ light bringers have love in their hearts, compassion, and massive patience. Christians go and say, my way or the highway. My way or you're not going to live another day. Oh, that rhymed. How interesting. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're dealing with here.
Well, Christians, let's not forget the Inquisition. The history of Christianity is pretty appalling, to be perfectly honest. Pretty bloody and brutal. So I don't think that, I think the difference between Christianity and Christ consciousness is that Christianity is a form of control and indoctrination, whereas Christ consciousness is a consciousness of wisdom and unconditional love.
Right.
They couldn't be more different.
Jennifer is asking, what are your thoughts of the Vatican opening the library? Jennifer, you and I both know, come on, that, and I'm going to let you answer, but I'm going to answer it if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's fine. I know what you're going to say, and I agree.
Okay, good. You say it then.
I mean, this is okay. I'm going to make an analogy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the analogy is the electoral system,
Mm-hmm.
right? They let us put the little cross in the box, and they let us feel that we have some kind of agency
Mm-hmm.
when we really don't. And this is all it is. There may well be snippets of information, but they're not going to show us where the money is. Put it that way, right? And I don't mean physical money. I mean money in terms of knowledge. They are not going to allow us.
They're not. They're not. They're not gonna fucking at all. In fact, the only reason why we know half the shit we know is the Irish were scribes inscribing a lot of these ancient scrolls, and the second were the Arabs. Okay, in the Muslim world, they were actually copying all the Greek philosophers. Thank God for them. So between those two cultures of the Irish and the Arabs is the only reason why we have philosophers like Aristotle and Plato. We know them because of these two cultures that kept it together. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church was burning. They were having a massive field day burning shit left and right. The other thing is, Wesley Huff made a comment about the fact that many of the Gnostic Gospels are not to be believed because, and this is, I almost laughed, okay, out loud. He says, because there is no, the authorized authorities, this is how he put it, have not acknowledged those scriptures. No shit, Sherlock. That's why they were burying it into fucking caves, you fucking idiot. That's why they were burying it in jars. The Essenes were in a panic going, we need to make sure that one day this will be found. Sherlock, Mr. Wesley Huff, most people play two against the middle to survive. Don't we all laugh at the boss's joke just to keep that paycheck one more week? And go, I mean, it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Don't you have any understanding of the human will to survive, and that sometimes you may say this? So he claims that Thomas would have never written the Gospel of Thomas because he was not acting like that. Well, maybe he was writing it under the cover of darkness. But I know for a fact that the Dead Sea Scrolls that were found that are, by the way, housed at the Huntington Botanical Library, if I'm still correct, where you can only have a PhD and a special letter to allow you to read and translate these scrolls, by the way, on the side note, which I thought was interesting, which is, I think, appropriate, I guess. But the point, what I'm trying to make is that, so his argument is that because this was not cataloged by the authorities who were writing the other gospel, that it can't be true. It's got to be fake. Fake, dude. They have carbon dating. Now what? So, what are your thoughts on his vehemence to? And again, let me just preface that a biblical scholar is not a true scholar. That's a scholar of rhetoric. A true scholar, and I said this yesterday, has got intelligence and curiosity and wants the truth at any cost. That means they have a 360-degree view. They want the truth. That's why I like Freddie Silva. I like Graham Hancock. I like whatchamacallit, David Icke. I like these guys because they don't give a shit what it takes. They want the truth. They don't care if it hurts. They want the truth. And this guy he's a biblical scholar. Right there, that should tell you everything you need to know. What are your thoughts on that?
There's no such thing as a biblical scholar who hasn't also studied ancient texts.
Okay, what happened? Did your phone go dead?
No, sorry, it was my low battery alert. Apologies. I don't know what you heard, but what I said is that there's no such thing as a biblical scholar who hasn't also studied ancient texts.
Yes.
Who hasn't also gone to the Sumerian tablets, the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example.
Yeah.
To not even entertain the Gnostic Gospels shows a tremendously limited mind, actually, and scholars should be open-minded. Real scholars, real academics, real scientists are people who try to prove themselves wrong in order to get to the truth. But this guy's just not interested in the truth. He's interested in his dogma.
Yeah. Yeah. If you like the live, please support. I never say that, but please support it by liking it and sharing it, because these are important things, okay? Because these people have over 100,000 views, right? And they're talking about the same old shit that has kept us looping into these incarnations in 3D, amnesia, third eye, destroyed mindset, okay? And people like us are being muzzled. So when you hear people like us talk about the wide scope of how these symbolisms and these avatars and these great souls that came and incarnated and were bastardized, basically what they were trying to impart for us, a massive wisdom, was completely destroyed and used to their own purpose. It's kind of like, imagine having someone you really, really love who's really brilliant, and they have incredible poetry in the or book they've written, and the whole book is fucking been edited, and all the meat and the power and the soul of it is reduced to bullshit, to keep just to feed the populace with more rhetoric, more lies, more bullshit. You'd be pissed. You'd be pissed. You'd go, why would you do that? The book was perfect. Why would you take it down to the very almost like dumbing it down? So do you understand what I'm saying? So I really want you guys to start, if you could be so generous, not to just to support this live, but support other lives like that. Because I'm hearing people talking about fasting, and I'm seeing fucking 10 people on those lives. And I think it's bullshit, because fasting is a spiritual power. It's why Yeshua, Buddha, all these guys, in fact, many guys today and women fast for spiritual clarity. So there are a lot of people that are saying things that are not comfortable, but the people talking rhetoric are getting all the nectar. And so I'd like you guys to maybe go out there and start looking for other people who are speaking outside and coloring outside the lines, smashing everything, very similar to what Yeshua did when he smashed into the merchant's table, saying, you are not what you're supposed to be. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You are hurting people, and you're choosing money over integrity, over healing people. Like I'm gonna say real quick, when I saw this wrestler, MMA wrestler, talking massive shit about Elon Musk, I mentioned in my last live, but it's worth repeating because many of you weren't on my last live. And what did he say? He said, you've got billionaires out there like Elon Musk throwing rockets up into the stratosphere when we have starving people. He said, I don't know about you, but if I had billions of dollars, I'd be helping people. And his true character will come out. Well, it's already come out. Every billionaire that's hoarding their billions and realizing the incredible imbalance of poverty in all over the world. People are starving, and there's no reason to starve. That. And they always come up with, well, there's gorillas and there's people preventing the food from coming in trucks. And I'm like, bullshit. I call bullshit. And I do call bullshit, because when there's a will, there's a way. And this is what Yeshua was doing when he was kicking over the merchants' tables. For example, I think this level of apathy that has befallen Europeans, which is a truth, okay, for the most part, okay, is something that Americans don't have. Americans still have a can-do attitude. It's one of the gifts of the American spirit. But I think the apathy of the European is seeping into the American consciousness of, no matter what I do, it doesn't matter. No matter what I do, I don't matter. And I'm wondering where this is coming from, because I know that, at least in France, and I can't speak for all French people, obviously, or all Europeans, but I do know that there is an apathy of, I don't matter. What I say won't matter. One person can't make a difference. And yet I illustrate people like Yeshua, Joan of Arc, Eleanor of Aquitaine, Cleopatra, even Marie Antoinette, Napoleon, General Patton. They all made a difference. Every single human being has been. Kennedy made a difference. Every singular one person made a difference. David Icke changed my life. And he changed millions of people's lives. He opened millions of people's eyes. And so did Freddie Silver, for me personally. So, when I think about this apathy that I'm seeing, I'm dangerously staining the American consciousness. I'd like you to maybe speak on if how this is being allowed, or why are you why I'm not going to speak for me, because I actually believe I matter, believe it or not. And it's not, I matter to a certain extent, but I matter as long as you feel that you matter, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Andromeda? What are your thoughts on this concept of the domino effect of us actually honoring how we matter to the change?
I think it's really important. And this is, again, this is part of what we're supposed to think, right? And it's part of not being able to see through 3D illusion. And what we have to understand is that, our the body that we inhabit in this incarnation is less than 1% of what we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our energy, our soul is the majority of what we are, and that's where the power lies. It's very easy to feel powerless when you're being faced with economic uncertainty, when you are seeing brutality on your television screens, when you're told that you are powerless, when your protests don't work. But you can't expect to really get anywhere by playing the same games that they are. So we have to build an egregore.
Yes.
Of hope, of love. Mm-hmm. We have to build the egregore of the new earth. That is where our power is, and every single one of us matters, and every single one of us has that power if we would only accept that thing about ourselves. And it is accepting that you are powerful, that you're a powerful being of light, you're a powerful soul, you're an infinite soul, and you have a connection to an infinite source of power and love, which is source.
Right.
You all matter.
And you have to forgive yourself, because what I'm finding on the other side of the veils is that once we cross over to the other side of the veils, we want to repair what we did by returning back into 3D. Now, if you went to college and you passed all your classes and barely passed a particular class with a C minus, for example, would you really want to take the class again? No, you'd be smart enough to go, fuck it, I'm going to 4th level, right? Whatever level it is, right? You would continue to get your degree, right? Am I correct? In university. Okay. Similarly, I want you to understand that you're not here to come back to 3D to redo and right the wrongs. Go back, continue your journey into 5D. Feel worthy of going into 5D with planet Earth in her evolution, okay? Please don't come back trying to right the wrongs. This is not the place to do it. Right the wrongs in a 5D world, in a 5D consciousness. Go there and do better. And do better and better and better. But do not come back in 3D. Don't do that. Because if you're given the same exact circumstances, it might look different, but the end result will be the same because the beginnings were the same. It'll have a different outcome, but the outcome will not be, it won't equate to A+. It'll still be a C-, but the roads you took to that C- was still the same. Essentially, maybe a different road, but same result. And this is something I hope I make sense, because what I'm seeing on the other side of the veils is souls literally thinking, I'm going to come back and redo everything, and I'll be a different man or woman, and I want that same exact life, which you can do, by the way. In the Akashic records, it's always looping. There's different pathways you can take. And that's not what your guides want. They want you to just keep going. You learned this, right? Yes, I did. Okay, keep going. Not go back. Okay, once the plate is broken into a million pieces, you can't go back and fix that. The plate is broken. Go on and make something new. Go to the pottery wheel of your life. Take the clay of a new life and become better. Master yourself even better with more success on higher frequencies. And you must feel as if you deserve a better dimensional consciousness, which would be 5D. And what would that mean? Well, it would mean that you would have the opportunity to remember more, to have more power, more like turning, I'm going to say, turning water into wine. In other words, manifesting what you want on a literally with no delay, because your monkey mind, which is a 3D little jailer, wouldn't be present in the same way. She would be a servant to your soul. And that's something that we have to master. And many of us are mastering this in this incarnation in some sectors of our daily life, not all sectors, which doesn't make you a failure. It just makes you a student to yourself and to the all, right? What are your thoughts on that before we go?
I think there's absolutely no point in coming back with in the same loop. Absolutely no point, because a lot of us will be able to do very powerful work on the other side to assist the continued ascension of Earth. And that is the point of many of our incarnations, is to assist the ascension. We do what we can while we are here, and we continue the work beyond the veils. I've talked before about the amnesia working both ways.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of souls forget how difficult and how dense life can be, wonderful as well, right? Life on Earth can be absolutely wonderful. But a lot of souls will forget, when they're looking at things from a more transcendental perspective, they will forget about the pain and the hardship that humans face on a day-to-day basis, how difficult it is to keep on track, how difficult it is to keep yourself in a vibration of unconditional love and unity consciousness. It's incredibly difficult.
Well, it's common sense. Just look at people with Alzheimer's, people that had 120 IQ, people who were great musicians or poets or architects who can't remember to go to the bathroom. We have spiritual Alzheimer's when we go into 3D consciousness. This is why many souls have not incarnated here. They won't do it because they don't see it as, it's only for 5,000 years. What can go wrong, right? No, they're smart enough to go, a lot of shit can go wrong, like a lot. Because then you incur both negative and positive karma that keeps you looped. Oh, I should come back. My son didn't do well. I wasn't a good mother. Let me come back and repair the wrong. No, there's a point where you got to say, you know what? I forgive myself and I forgive others and I release. That's it. End goal. New goal now is being shown in front of you. New mission, new steps to take, new pathways into higher dimensionals. Consciousness. And that's what we're looking to do. This is what the 1% doesn't want us to do, because see, being a billionaire, being a hoarder is not a match to 5D, 6D frequency. It's not a match. You don't have to talk about, oh, I don't want this and I don't want that. I don't want famine, war, and pestilence and this and that. You don't have to say that. You just say 5D, abundance for everyone. Everyone's generous. Everyone has what they need. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's happy. When we have conflict, it's really no big deal. We all help with the conflict, and it dissolves from a generous hearts. And that's all you have. You don't have to, oh, we won't have 5 go where you don't have to go into that, because it's not even a match. It really isn't. Trust me. Or fuck it, don't trust me. Trust the truth of that. Because it's not my truth, it's the truth. It's not my opinion, it's truth. It comes from a place of such a high frequency, and amnesia is no longer part of our daily reality. Thank the fuck God, it's finally over. So it's not about leaving planet Earth and going, well, fuck this planet, because the planet was never the problem. That's why she's sobbing and begging for our mercy and begging for our understanding that it is not her fault, and it never was. It's been the 1% all along. They're the problem. And we don't, and one of the things that has been a concern of mine is that everyone's into the shun. They're all into that shit. They want it. They want it. They want it bad. And what they don't understand is that we've done that, been there, done that for thousands of years. And here we are still talking the same shit with the same 1%. So wouldn't you say that maybe it's best to just raise our vibration, to just check out, cross the bridge that is not a match? It's almost like the Red Sea parting. We're crossing to the other side and the water collapses over the 1% because it's not a match. You're not allowed in. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it does make sense. There's no point you know, you come back here and you will have immediate amnesia. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what's happened in previous incarnations. You're going to have to start right from the beginning. I mean, things are changing a little bit.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is that there are more and more and more of us for whom the veil is thinner.
Yes.
Okay. And there are some of us who were born awake to an extent. Until we, you know, we went into school and we listened to the lies and we heard the lies and we believed the lies and we wanted to fit in and we developed amnesia.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no point in reincarnating here, and I think we all need to collectively appeal to those souls. No, you're more powerful actually where you are.
Yeah.
When you remember where you have recently experienced and try to remember what you experienced on Earth and how difficult it is for humans on Earth, on the ascension path, trying to see through the illusions, having to work on it every single day, because the ego will get you if you relax for a moment, okay? But this is constant work for those of us who are trying to raise the frequency of Earth, trying to bring this message to other humans who are struggling.
Yes.
On Earth at the moment.
And
So,
the one thing that when I have clients, doesn't matter what we're talking about, the first thing they say, every client I first meet, first, I think I'm going crazy. In a world that's crazy, it's funny because it's the reverse. You're not crazy, you're actually conscious. And you know it's all wrong. But because the world is insane, run by the 1%, which we're going back all the way back to Yeshua. Let's keep repeating ourselves back to Yeshua, who was aware of the 1% that turned their backs on him and gave him the worst death any human being can go through, which is reported. You can read about what crucifixions does to you, anybody. And it's insane that people feel like they're going crazy as they awaken, when in fact they're going into their sanity, into their third eye opening, into their heart chakra opening. And now it feels uncomfortable to take in this poison, because this poison was sent to us and sold to us as nectar when it was poison to our consciousness, right? What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, sorry, I was trying to get back to you there. Yeah, this is a really important time. It's a really important time because so many people are awakening, because we've got younger generations that are born awake and are refusing to invest in the status quo of Earth. And I really like that you used the word poison.
Yeah.
Because the orthodoxy has poisoned our consciousness. It has blocked our chakras. And we start our ascension path by clearing that, by seeing through the illusion, by rejecting their attacks and their ownership of our chakras. We work on each one every single day. We meditate, we develop our relationship with our soul and with source.
Yes.
We reject separation consciousness. We reject their fear. We create that egregore, that community of love, of 5D consciousness that we're all looking towards, that is here. It is here right now. And we stay in that vibration. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult on Earth. It is really, really difficult, you know, but just touching on something you said earlier, you know, it is up to people who are on these apps to really choose where they're investing their time, where they're investing their energy. you know, and yeah, we're not showing our faces, and we're not, you know, we're not jiggling around like the dancing girls, and we're not as titillating, and we're not going to give you readings that are going to tell you that you and your twin are going to be in union tomorrow, right? We're not going to do that, because that's not what this is about. This is about your ascension. It's about the ascension of Earth. And if you are struggling on a twin flame journey, right, then the best way to ensure that you and your twin reach the consciousness of 5D, the best way to ensure that, because it will happen, not necessarily in this incarnation, but it will happen. But the best way to guarantee it is to work on your own ascension.
Yeah, I agree with it. And this is something people will not tell you. The moon, the full moon, it's the last full moon. It's heralding 2025, which is number 9. This year, 2024, was number 8, filled with karma on yourself, because many of us betrayed ourselves. 8 is the vibration of betraying, not just it's gaining karma, okay, and in this case, negative. And negative karma isn't just what you may have done to X, Y, and Z in multiple past lives, but it's also betraying of yourself in multiple past lives because of fear of going against the status quo, or disappointing your families, or this, that, and the other. So we paid massive karma. Many of us have really we got our ass kicked this year. In fact, it started for many of you in 2018, 2017. But what I will say is 2025 is the vibration of 9, God's perfect master number. I have a video on that. You can check it out. I've remissed on the 144. I'll do a video soon on that one too. I really want to honor that number in all of its power, and I want to be balanced in how I share it. So that's why I took it out of the 9. You'll see only certain numbers like 27. Anyway, just check it out. It's on my TikTok channel. But what I would say to you is 2025, the last full moon, whether you see it in the sky or not, which I'm seeing a milky sky, which of course it's always by design, half the shit these people do. But anyway, I want you to go ahead and work on that. I want you to work not just on what you desire, but for the new earth. Call in the new earth. Thank the universe that you are so grateful that you now live in the new earth. 5D vibration. There's generosity, there's balance. You don't have to say what you don't want. You don't have to say there's no wars, don't say that. Just say there's peace, generosity, people travel, there's tribes and communities of loving energy. And planet Earth is so vibrant. And the colors that you see now in 5D are colors you've never seen before. And the food is filled with incredible energy. And just if you could write a love letter to the universe tonight, and deliver it however you wish. You can bury it, you can burn it, you can keep it, whatever you are divinely directed to do for you. It might be that you keep the letter, for all I know, or you take a picture of the letter and then you burn it, or however you want to do it. It's up to you. You decide. But it's very important that today you take this very seriously, because the reason why we have gone back to Yeshua and Mary Magdalene and the separation of the divine masculine and feminine for 2,000 years, and the denigration of the female sex, where many of us were men. And I've said this again and again, where we've been men, we've been women. The guys, many of you who are men right now were women in the past, suffering the patriarchal boot on your throat, many incarnations, and vice versa, right? So the forgiveness of self. See, like when you do an Akashic reading, like let's say you do one with me, it isn't to beat yourself up. It's to see the vibration that is unseen by your mortal eyes or your mortal consciousness, to say, oh, that's what's keeping me here. The guilt. Okay, the guilt of what I could have done better and I did not do. The reason why we keep looping back going, I can do this better this time. I know, well, what's 80 years on the planet in 3D? It'll be quick. And we're not winning in that way. We're not. And what I remember doing when I did Pachamama, my last year in 2019, I remember her saying, the key to Shambhala is self-love and self-forgiveness. And she said, and this is not easy to master, but you must master it if you want the gates of Shambhala to open. It went on for hours, okay? The various aspects of what that meant to self-forgive and to self-love. Now, I'm giving you that message because Does it make sense to you? Does it make sense to you that as long as you harbor guilt, self-loathing, and some of it is untapped, in other words, you don't remember why you feel that way? So the vibration of you incarnating into a particular family that would be abusive, let's just say, or fucked up family, or toxic family in some aspect, right? Would be that you were a vibrational match to that, not because you're a bad person, but because you couldn't forgive yourself. So you had lowered your frequency, which was a match to that family. For some of you, that's a truth. For some of you, that doesn't resonate. And that's okay. But you need to understand why we keep looping. Why is this being taught as normal? And it's not. And so now it's time for us to go. We fell from high dimensions. We looped down like a letter U, right? We fell into 2D and 3D. And now we're going back up with a new understanding, something that no one can ever take away. No, not even the creator can never take away from us, because that the creator wanted us to, with our free will, to grow at our own pace, making our own choices, because that's the mark of a good parent. Good parents don't want you to be little me. Good parents want you to make the right choice, and they hope to God you will. And that's similar in what's happening. And so as you forgive yourself and you reject self-loathing into unconditional self-acceptance with all your warts and jiggles and whatever else you've got going on in your monkey mind, train your monkey mind. There are images that you're getting that are not yours. You're picking up on the radio frequency of other sentient beings. That means that you need to sage yourself. You need to do mantras to clean your mind, the monkey mind that you have to work with, as long as you're in these 3D bodies. How do we end this, my love? We could go on for fucking hours. What do you think?
Today.
No, me too. I hear you.
How do we end this? Well, we go back to, as you have done, back to Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. We really study the Gnostic Gospels, study who Mary of Magdalena actually was, and meditate on the reasons why this information has been kept from us. Don't take our word from it for it. Meditate on it. Try to learn for yourself why the veil of illusion has been consolidated and promoted by the 1%, those who have installed themselves or been installed as our leaders on this planet. And then start to see the illusion elsewhere. Start to see the illusion of separation. Start to understand that you actually do have massive energetic power to shift your own vibration, but also the vibration of the planet. Understand how powerful and divine you are, and why you chose to incarnate here at this time, at this crucial time for Pachamama, planet Earth.
Exactly. Okay, so please follow us if you like what we're talking about. I am a tarot reader. Me and Andromeda teach classes. We have a class coming up where we're going to be actually teaching how to make a powerful altar. It's an altar of abundance and an altar of love. And we will teach this class. We're putting it together now as we speak, with schematics, with videos on how, and literally very specific. There's specific. You don't just throw shit on a table and think it's an altar. Okay, there's specific things you got to do, and also there's specific mantras to actually ignite an altar. And so we're going to be teaching that class. We're also going to be teaching a tarot class. It's going to be very, very intense. And we'll be also teaching a tantra class. All of these will be pre-recorded. You can buy them at your leisure, and go from there. And we're going to start teaching pre-recorded classes because we feel like it's much more focused and much more efficient. And once you buy, say, phase 1 of a class, you can send your questions, and our phase 2 is to answer all the questions in a focused way, so you get your answers. So if you're interested in following us, please follow us now. And also follow me on YouTube. A lot of the lives, you can go back and you'll see Andromeda Flame in many of my interviews, our talks together, and you can check out more of our content with me and Andromeda Flame working on trying to to find clarity in the shit show that we've been handed for thousands of years. You got to realize something. It's not your fault. Your brainwashing was never your fault. Your inability to remember and to second guess your downloads is not your, it's not your fault. But your job is to now take the reins back into your hands and listen to people who are on the outskirts drumming the truth, who have been muzzled by the 1%, their YouTube channels ripped from under their feet, things of that nature. And that's why I'm constantly giving you the same names, because those are the guys. It's mostly, I'm sorry, guys. Me and Andromeda are not to that level as these men that I've just mentioned. And we're not trying to be famous at all. That's not our goal. But our goal is to at least be the feminine voices that speak about these things that have been buried alive, which shows a massive cruelty there. And all of these truths hidden and by supposed arrogant and self-proclaimed scholars and experts with their incredible toxic arrogance to dissuade you from believing in your own connection with, say, Yeshua or Buddha, Siddhartha, right? Buddha or Allah or or God, or however you see it, or the archangels. And angels have been talked about since fucking, it's not a, angels have been around before they were orthodox religions. Just they're talked about. The Greeks talk about it. It goes all the way back and beyond. So whatever comes to you, the question is always, is it making me feel good, or does it make me afraid? And then you have to ask yourself, am I afraid because I'm about to break out of my jail, like a feral animal that's been trapped and then is released back into the wild? That kind of afraid? Are you afraid of growing because now you will not be a frequency match to the status quo? Or are you afraid because it's a corrupted download? And none of these things can be clear until you develop you work on your chakras. So Andromeda has a lot of videos on very intense videos on chakras. I have guided meditations that teach you the 9 somatic chakras. You can look it up on the playlists that we have. And I if you want to grow, start looking for people like us who are on the outskirts of what they call the New Age movement. Because what we talk about is ancient wisdoms buried alive to bar us, prevent us from ascending. And now it's getting even harder because the 1% definitely wants, I mean, they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at us to stop us from ascending. Because at that point, their way of life is game over. And none of us give a shit because we're not interested in wealth. We're interested in spiritual peace and abundance and joy and laughter. That's what we're interested in. And pure food and a pure community, a community that's there to support. So please follow Andromeda Flame. Please follow me. We'll announce when we have our classes and hopefully you'll join. Okay. Thank you, Letty. I can't wait. I love the both of you. Thank you. Thank you. So please follow us, and sending you so much love on your journey. It's not easy, but just remember this, you're not alone. All right. Sending you much love on your journey. Namaste. Be well.